are, the longing. Let's start a fire so the little one can have a little bit extra time. About to run out of coal. The time is passing at 10 seconds per tick. So it should only take 40 real life days instead of 400. The Nibelungen lied. 12th adventure, how Gunther invited Siegfried to the festival. Still Gunther's consort ever thought with deep mushing care, why should the lady Kriemhild herself so proudly bear? And yet her husband Siegfried, what but our man is he, and late but little service has yielded for his fee. In her heart his thought she fostered, deep in its inmost core, that still they kept such distance, a secret grudge she bore. How came it that their vassal to court declined to go, nor for his land did homage? She inly yearned to know. She made request of Gunther, and begged it so might be, that she the absent Kriemhild yet once again might see, and told him too in secret, whereon her thoughts were bent. With the words she uttered, her lord was scarce content. How could we bring them hither? The king in turn began, such a length journey 'twere past the power of man. I could not ask it of them, they dwell from us so wide. Thereto in haughty fashion the frowning queen replied, how rich soever a vassal, how broad soever his lands, obedience is his duty, whatever his lord commands. Sure could but smile Sir Gunther, when thus he heard her fret. 'Twas not for suit and service that he and Siegfried met. Said she, dear lord, for my sake, thy efforts join with mine, that Siegfried and thy sister once more may seek the Rhine, that we again may see them, and all in love unite. Nothing, I well assure thee, could give me more delight. What soft emotion soothes me, who whenever I call to mind thy sister's noble graces, her accent soft and kind, and how when both were married, we both sat side by side. No doubt may she with honor be Siegfried's loving bride. She pressed so long that Gunther replied with altered cheer, now know that guests so welcome never saw I here. Much pressing little needed, so messengers of mine I'll send to bid them hasten hither to the Rhine. Thereto the queen made answer, tell me now, I pray, when you will send to ask them, and about what day, we may expect the travelers to both of us so dear, and who will bear your message, I willingly would hear. So will I do, replied he, 30 of my men shall be commissioned thither. Forthwith he summoned them, those by whom his message to Siegfried's land he sent. Brunhild's sumptuous vesture gave them to their full content. Then spake the king, ye warriors, from me this message bear, that you keep back nothing, I bid you well beware, which I to valiant Siegfried, and to my sister send, that in this world can no man to both be more a friend. And beg them hasten hither, us on the Rhine to see, it shall be well requited both by my wife and me. By the next midsummer, he and his man shall find, from every one among us, high honor, welcome kind. Unto the good King Sigmund, my service to commend, say I and mine shall ever hold him as our friend. Bid to my sister hasten, to meet her kinsmen dear, never graced she royal festal, like that which waits her here. Brunhild and Uta and every lady there, and to the land of Siegfried, their greeting bade them bear. To many a noble warrior and many a lady gay, so with the king's commission, the couriers went their way. To start they now were ready. To each of all the band was brought both steed and vesture, so rode they from the land. With happy haste they journeyed, and ever pricked by hand they hard. The king had sent an escort, his messengers to guard. In the weary journey, 3 toilsome weeks they spent, at last in Nibelung's castle, whither they had been sent. Even in the march of Norway, they found King Sigmund's son. Horses alike and riders were travel tainted and fordone. To Siegfried and to Kriemhild forthwith the tidings came, that knights had journeyed thither, whose venture was the same, and what by men of worship was born in Burgundy, from her daybed Kriemhild upsprung hastily. Sudden to a window she bade a damsel go, who saw bold Gary standing in the court below. Him and his valiant comrades on the same errand bound, for her long brooded sorrow, what rapture then she found. Loud called she to her husband, see you where they stand down. Loud called she to her husband, see you where they stand down. In the court there waiting, stout Gary and his band. Loud called she to her husband, see you where they stand. Down in the court there waiting, stout Gary and his band. Whom my good brother Gunther has sent us down. Whom my good brother Gunther has sent us down the Rhine. Welcome are they, said Siegfried, welcome to me and mine. Where they saw them standing, all the household ran. They kindly then saluted, as man encountered man, and as they best could please them, spoke many a friendly word. With no small joy King Sigmund of their arrival heard. Straight were allotted quarters to Gary and his men, and charge taken of their courses, the messengers went then, to where sat bold Sir Siegfried, by gentle Kriemhild's side. They were to court invited, and so they thither hied. Uprose as in they entered, the host and his fair dame. Full well received was Gary, and all who with him came. His followers, Gunther's liegemen, from distant Burgundy, to a seat the warrior was motioned, courteously. Nay, deign, said he, our message, to hear before we sit, and us way-wearied wanderers the while to stand permit. We have to tell you tidings, to us committed late, by Gunther and by Brunhild, who are both in best estate. And from the lady Uta we come, your mother dear, and from the good Sir Gernot and youthful Gisler. And from the lady Uta we come, your mother dear, and from the good Sir Gernot and youthful Gisler, and from your choicest kinsmen, who all with kind intent by us to you their service from Burgundy have sent. Now God then quit, said Siegfried, that they're sincere and true. I trust with full assurance, as men with friends should do. The same too feels their sister. Now further to us tell, whether our friends in Rhineland are hearty all and well. Since we from them departed, has any neighboring foe harried my consort's kindred, this let me surely know. To them by me shall ever such friendly aid be lent, that their wrong the doers shall bitterly repent. Since we from them departed, has any neighboring foe harried my consort's kindred, this let me surely know. To them by me shall ever such friendly aid be lent, that their wrong the doers shall bitterly repent. Thereto the Margrave Gary, the good knight, made reply, fraught with all manly virtues, they bear them proud and high. They bid you to a festal, which they at home prepare. You need not doubt your kinsmen would gladly see you there. They also beg my lady, thither with you to wend, soon as the blustering winter shall come at length to end. You both ere next midsummer, they all expect to see. Then said the valiant Siegfried, that can hardly be. But straight the bold Burgundian, Gary, gave this reply, surely your mother Uta you never can deny, nor Gisler nor Gernot, who all would meet you fain, that you dwell so far distant, I hear them daily plain. Brunhild, my noble lady, and all her maidens fair, are glad to think that forthwith you thither will repair, that they once more may see you, fills every heart with glee. His words to lovely Kriemhild seem full good to be. Gary was her kinsman, him begged the host to sit, and straight bade fill the goblets, to pledge them as was fit. Then too to meet the envoys, King Sigmund joined the rest, and to the bold Burgundians these friendly words addressed. Welcome, you men of Gunther, since Siegfried, my good son, your noble lady Kriemhild for his wife has won. You at our court more frequent, we should have gladly seen. Your presence of our friendship the surest bond have been. They said whenever he wished it, they willingly would come. Their toil and teen through gladness forgot they all in some. Siegfried bade all to be seated, and viands of the best, and in full abundance he brought to every guest. 9 days in mirth and feasting the envoys need must stay. At length the active warriors could brook no more delay. Again would they ride homeward, on that their minds were bent. And the interval King Siegfried for his friends had sent. He asked them what they counseled. He needs must be to the Rhine. He needs must to the Rhine. I bidden am by Gunther, that dear friend of mine. At a high feast my presence he and his kinsmen pray. Fain would I ride thither, weren't not so far away. They beg moreover Kriemhild, the journey too may share. Now my good friends advise me, what's best to do declare. Should they for them request me to harry 30 lands, will they such warlike service might claim at Siegfried's hands. Thereto his knights thus answered, as you desire to speed, if you this feast will visit, hearken to our rede. Take of your best warriors 1,000 by your side, so midst the bold Burgundians in honor you'll abide. Then spake the Lord of Netherlands, Sigmund the frank and free, if you're for this high festal, why say not so to me? I, if it not displease you, will with you to the Rhine, and bring to swell your squadron 100 knights of mine. Will you two journey with us, my father ever dear? Exclaimed the bold Sir Siegfried, it glads me this to hear. Within 12 days at furthest, we'll wend upon our way, to all who asked and gave ye good steeds and garments gay. When now to take the journey fixed was the king's design, he bade the knights of Gunther ride back unto the Rhine, and sent by them a message to Kriemhild's kinsmen there, that to the feast they purposed, full fain would he repair. Siegfried and Kriemhild, so says the tale, bestowed more gifts upon the envoys than ever such length of road their horses could. Siegfried and Kriemhild, so says the tale, bestowed. Siegfried and Kriemhild, so says the tale, bestowed. Siegfried and Kriemhild, so says the tale, bestowed more gifts upon the envoys than over such length of road their horses home could carry. A wealthy man was he. They drove their strong-backed sumpters merrily over the lea. Siegfried and eke Sigmund, their people clothed anew, equart the Margrave all, Siegfried's country through, bade seek out women's raiment, whatever was stored in chest, or could be bought for money, the choicest and the best. Rich saddles were made ready, and shields of glittering pride, to the knights and ladies that should with Siegfried ride. Whatever they wished was granted, none wanted there for aught. To his friends in Rhineland, many a lordly guest he brought. Meanwhile, homeward speeding pricked the envoys fast. Back came the noble Gary to Burgundy at last. He met with hearty welcome, straight they dismounted all, from war-horse and from palfrey, before King Gunther's hall. Old and young as the use is, ran up from every side, and asked what news they brought them. The noble knights replied, when I the king have told it, 'twill spread to all around. Then went he with his comrades to where the king he found. From sheer pleasure Gunther started from his seat at the happy tidings that they had come so fleet. Much thanks had they from Brunhild, Gunther straight begun. How fares it with Siegfried, who so much for me has done? From sheer pleasure, Gunther started from his seat at the happy tidings that day had come so fleet. Much thanks had they from Brunhild, Gunther straight begun. How fares it with Siegfried, who so much for me has done? To hear of you, said Gary, he reddened with delight. Both he and eke your sister, never living wight, sent his friends a message so tender and so true, as by me Sir Siegfried and his father have to you. To hear of you, said Gary, he reddened with delight. Both he and eke your sister, never living wight, sent his friends a message so tender and so true, as by me Sir Siegfried and his father have to you. Then to the valiant Margrave, the noble Queen Gaunsay, tell me is Kriemhild coming, to still her form display, the beauty and soft graces she well to foster knew. The good knight Gary answered, she's surely coming too. And before Dame Uta, the messengers were brought. Well, without her asking, could Gary guess her thought. So ere she put the question, how did Kriemhild fare, he said how he had found her, and that she'd soon be there. Of all the gorgeous presents, nothing was left untold, given them by good Sir Siegfried, the raiment and the gold, that the three brethren's lieges might view them forth were laid. With thanks the gracious giver was by them all repaid. Aye, of his own, said Hagen, full lightly he may give. 'Tis past his power to spend it, should he forever live. The Nibelunger's treasure holds he by strength of hand. I would it were brought hither to our Burgundian land. The court, both knights and ladies, were all with joy elate to hear that they were coming, early forthwith and late. The friends of the three brethren were busied every man, seats with sumptuous trappings to raise they straight began. Hainault and eke Sindolt, the hardy knights and true, had not a moment's leisure, for work had they to do, the while as sewer and butler, and many a bench to raise, or wine for the aid he gave them, had Gunther's thanks and praise. Sore toiled the chief cook Rummelt, how his orders ran. Among his understrappers, how many a pot and pan, how many a mighty cauldron rattled and rang again. They dressed a world of dishes for all the expected train. Nor less was then the labor to the fair ladies known, as they prepared their garments, many a precious stone. They set in gold far beaming, and glittered both so bright, and with such grace they wore them, and ravished every sight. 13. Oh, that'll be it for now. I guess one of each chapter. So it's 2 chapters total. Should be enough. Yeah, I don't know where to find It's been a long day, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't mean the 24-hour period between midnight and midnight. There's a few days ago, I had this strange sensation in my brain. I had received some very sad news and was wrestling with a situation in my mind. And I don't know if it was the emotional state that I'm not usually in or what, but something shifted in my brain. So it's just as if between my traumatic brain injury and the surgeries I had had previously, and afterward, something had kind of shut down inside. It made it real difficult. It made it difficult to do a lot of things. It made it difficult to read, to think, to talk. Just a lot of things, especially with the reading and focusing on things like playing video games even. But something just changed. I'm not really sure what it was, but I've been experiencing thoughts and capacities that I haven't felt in 30 years. It was weird. It was a very weird sensation, and it was immediate. There was an immediate change in the way I felt. Never felt anything quite like it. And I was just sitting down being sad. So, I wonder what'll happen. It's been a good time. It's been an interesting week. A lot of things have been going on. A lot of stalking. I've noticed that the stalking is a little bit higher than it was before. And I know this because I notice it in on my digital footprint. There's someone in my digital footprint. It's hard to get someone to believe that, but I spent a lot of time in technology and I recognize it. So there's definitely someone stalking me, and there's definitely someone. I'm hoping it's just a playful, silly person and not a nefarious one, because it's real annoying. You're not very good at it though. There might be more than one though. It's like I keep getting these little messages and things. I don't know if it's open source or if it's downright hacking or both, but I keep getting these inappropriate messages. The kind of message you get from like a little boy who's trying to be brave or trying to be tough. Either way, it's annoying. I'm gonna try to stay alive though, so I apologize if there's some kind of incident. I've called the cops a few times, but they don't seem to be taking it seriously. And I've kind of just decided that, well, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. You know? But looking at it from the outside perspective, it's like, I'm sorry that you're doomed. I'm sorry that you're doomed. And you're not even that good at it, to be honest. I've just never played that kind of game because I thought it was a waste of time. There's bigger problems. That's one thing I'll say is that the world has so many problems that the little fucking, I don't have a word insulting enough for this type of male. Usually 100 years ago they probably would have been put down like dogs, but we're having problems where there's people who are, you know, the high value of life. But I mean, good luck to you, because you need it. Because you're having this much trouble and I'm not even trying. I got way more important things to do. Like way, way, way more important. Even playing this game right now is more important than worrying about you. But I look forward to the meeting. You're gonna be disappointed because I'm not gonna take you seriously. I'm assuming that they're listening, so. Because if they're such a hard dick for me, I mean, why wouldn't they? Huh? Make everything pretty public. But maybe I'm just being paranoid. Maybe it's just. I mean, I'm not though, because I can recognize visual tampering. I've been trained in the recognition of visual tampering. But it's hard to get a police force that has no knowledge of these kind of things to take it seriously. But that means I must be doing something right. So it's not that big a deal. So I guess I'm doing the right thing. I don't know what that right thing is, though. No idea what that right thing is. It's not real important, though. I'm making progress in the goals that I want to make progress in. And I try to do what I can for other people. I'm no saint by any means, but I mean, the reason I tell you all this is in the hopes that it might help you grow up some. Whatever age you are, we're all immature. Not really worried about how old you are. Age is just a matter of not dying. Maturity is a matter of surviving experience. So, I've been writing a lot. I've been writing letters. My brain is starting to hurt. My grandmother enjoyed letters, and sometimes I would write letters to my grandmother. So, writing letters is kind of an act of remembrance and respect for my grandparents, who were World War II era individuals. They were like, my grandfather was in World War II, so they're like, I got to experience some older opinions, and that's one of those things that I was always told it was considered respectful, writing a letter. So, but this world is a lot different. Not that I'm complaining. I just don't know what to write anymore, because no one writes me back. As many letters as I've written, I've never had anyone write me back, so there's no correspondence. It's just like, it's kind of like when I was dating my wife. I felt like I didn't grow up talking a lot, you know? I pretty much was only around whenever someone needed something of me. And the only time I voiced my opinion was when it was super important, which is why I'm kind of like, when I say super important, I mean like you're infringing on my person, so of course I'm gonna yell at you or something, or you're doing something that is directly harming me, whether physical, mental, or whatever, harming one of my relationships or something. So of course I'm gonna bite your head off, and then they use it like that, but it's kind of like watching a gaggle of fucking idiots beat each other off with feather dusters. Because, so this is an important thing you should know, right? I'm a Christian. Most people don't know what that is. Most people, even Christians, don't know what that is, because the Bible is basically everything. And personally, I'm at the point where if you don't believe it, who cares? Who cares what you believe and don't believe? Like, I get it that you don't understand it. I get it that you were likely not raised in a spiritual environment. You probably don't have the experiment. Like, you've probably never been slapped in the face for saying something wrong either. It's very likely that you never got slapped in the face or backhanded for saying something inappropriate. You probably never got your ass beat over nothing before. So of course you're not gonna understand. It's just one of those experiences. If you've never been indoctrinated into the scientific method, you're not gonna think like a scientist. You're not gonna know what science is. You're not going to know what the scientific method is and how to use it. If you're not indoctrinated into Christianity, you're not going to understand it. And most of the people are so afraid of the effects of becoming Christian that some of them become schizophrenic. Because they just can't handle it. And some of them get affected by not great things, because I don't know what people, there's so many Christians, and honestly I blame the Spanish for this, because they did forced conversions at the sword tip, and so basically they forced people to convert to a religion, so of course they were going to hate it. Of course the people in the religion that were forced to be that religion were going to hate it, and then they were going to corrupt it from the inside, like all corruptors do, like the people who were human sacrificers and things, that, like they should have just killed them, personally. But I guess the ones that wanted to live, they decided to pretend to be Christian, because, back then they were like, most of the people that the old world Christians killed, there's a lot of idiots out there who think that the Bible is about war and murder and stuff. Like, there's this one dude that I met. He was probably one of the biggest fools I ever met, and one of those pseudo intellectuals. Anyway, what is left out of that is that it's like cannibals and human sacrificers and people who sacrifice children like by burning them alive and stuff. That's what most of the people who were killed by all these old crusaders and stuff, they killed them because they were killing children and raping women and eating human flesh, and they were just doing horrible shit, or at least some of them. I'm sure they use that as an excuse, but it's well known that it's, at least in the Americas, there was a lot of cannibalism and there were a lot of human sacrifices and things. Which, me personally, if I found a bunch of human sacrificers, I'd do the same thing. But they have technology now, so they can get away with it a lot easier. It's a shame that as good has gotten more intelligent, so has evil. Well, I wouldn't say intelligent. I would say that they learned how to use the equipment. Because anyway, that's a whole nother time. But basically, all that spiritual shit that the New World, New Age people are talking about, all the things in mythology, all of the gods, and I say gods because God is an English word, and in England there's only the one God, and everything else is a different word, and just for the ease of understanding what they were doing, they started using the word God in the place of, like, I don't know, spirit or whatever, but that's all in there. It's mostly Old Testament though, but there's a lot of it in the New Testament as well. There's just pretty much there's an example of every spiritual practice on earth in it, and because the Bible is specifically a Christian tradition that spans back to the beginning of the creation of humanity, Adam and Eve, and if you want to argue with that, you can, but that's the doctrine and that's the history. So you're arguing with nothing. Like, okay, I'm sorry, you don't realize that carbon dating is wrong, even though there are plenty of studies showing that carbon dating can be very wrong. So, like, you have your faith in wrong science, and I have faith in, like, a very oft passed down book in addition to the science that backs it up, which I'm sure someone who doesn't know anything will get mad at me about saying that. But that's the nature of being ignorant, is anger. Those who are ignorant get angry. Well, to be fair, anger is the emotion that wells up whenever there's a feeling of something wrong. So, like, if you're having a right infringed upon you, if your rights are infringed upon, you're going to get angry. If you are a person who isn't selfish, if you witness another person's rights being infringed, you will get angry. Now, if you have the power and the mind to do something about it, you won't be angry very long because you'll be able to do something about it, and then there's nothing to be angry about. But if you constantly make the wrong choices, you're just going to be angry all the time. Like, for example, there's a lot of people that I've spent time with that they consider me to be angry, but that's so stupid. It's just that every time I talk to them, they're some of the most inflammatory sphincters I've ever talked to. Like, if you have a relationship with someone, and every time you talk to them, you push all their buttons. Say you have a 30-year relationship with them and you know all their buttons. And every time you talk to them, you push their buttons, then that's your fault, man. What kind of shithead are you? Why do you keep messing with people that can't handle it? They're going to hate you. And you're not going to get what you want out of it. They're going to, at best, the people, it's even worse whenever the people doing the scolding, like, all they're doing is scolding, because there's two different types of, like, criticism. There's destructive criticism and constructive criticism. Destructive criticism is if you just say, oh, you're doing that wrong, and you're bad for it. Well, what am I doing? I'm not telling you that. You're just doing it wrong. That's destructive criticism. Usually that means that they don't know what the problem is. And I know this because I've learned a lot of things, and that's how it feels whenever I don't know enough to be able to correct someone. It's just like you're doing something wrong, but I don't know what it is. And the problem with that is there's no a handy mattock useful for harvesting minerals and for breaking through fragile walls. Um, Basically, if they're not smart enough to know what they're talking about, they'll be destructive in criticism. But if they are an actual true teacher and they care about your well-being and they know what they're talking about, they might destroy you for a moment. But then their next step will be to build you back up again. And that's who you should look for. Don't look for people who just destroy you. Because there's that kind of person. There's the person that will only destroy you, and then it's either because they want you to do good, but they don't know how to get you there, so they're doing all that they've ever been taught, or they want to see you squirm, which is, I mean, whatever. Like, if it's directed toward me, that's not a problem because, you know, they're not nearly as skilled. My father's a much more intelligent man, and he's much more creative with insults and criticism. So it's not that big a deal. It's really their own withering. But to have a person who will tell you what's wrong, tell you how to make it right, and then push that onto you, that's a true friend. It's a true friend. If they don't tell you what to do to make it right, then they either don't know how to deal with it or they're not your friend. And if they're not your friend, just be careful, because why are they around you? Even if they're not criticizing you, because criticizing you likely is some residual of someone in their past that was trying to get them to do the right thing, and they just may not realize it. On the other hand, though, there's the people who will just enable you with whatever you do, because either they are so afraid of being criticized that they don't want to do it to anyone else, which is a trauma response, and that requires its own help, or the things you are doing for them are pleasing them, and they don't want to harsh their buzz. They don't want to harsh the good thing that they're getting by criticizing you. They're not willing to lose you for your own sake. And they're certainly not willing to use the benefits, like, they're not willing to sacrifice for themselves in order to have what you deserve. But again, there's some of it, sometimes it's their fault and sometimes it's not. This is going to take a while. I am not the strongest, but luckily I have plenty of time. I've never met anyone who I believed to be genuinely out to harm people. I've met a lot of people who I could tell that they were just doing the best they could, and likely their ill attitude was the parenting style passed on to them from their parents. And it takes certain individuals to want to change that. And that's a very hard thing to do. I've seen it happen. I've seen it in the Army. Actually, that whole concept I learned from the military. It's called command climate. When I was in, there was a huge push for SHARP, which is Sexual Harassment and Assault Response and Prevention. SHARP, Sexual Harassment, Assault, Response, and Prevention, which is basically they turned us into little Gestapo against each other, and if we didn't call each other out on doing, like, if someone made a sexual joke, we were supposed to say, no, fuck you, bitch. Not in those words. You were supposed to be tactful, because usually it was the higher enlisted, the higher ranking people who were doing this behavior. And so it's real fucking difficult to call out someone up on top of you, like, that's higher ranking than you. But at the same time, this is one of the expectations that we, in the period of time that I was enlisted, it was expected of us that basically if we didn't call someone out on what they were doing wrong, it was fucking our fault, because we didn't care about our buddy. We didn't care about our battle buddy enough to correct their shit. We didn't fix their collar. And it's our fucking fault. That would make us a shitbag because we didn't fix them. And it's a very scary thing, because there's SHARP. SHARP is a big one that was going on. I don't know when it started. I don't know the state of it, because when I got out of the military was when I was transitioning out of the military was when the transgender movement was going on, and that was when the military was starting to pay for the transgender surgeries, and I actually had to go to a transgender sensitivity class, but everyone had to. Everyone had to go to the transgender sensitivity class because it was a new thing, and that was like one of the last things I did in the military was that training. The other one is equal opportunity, and that's basically if there was any racism, we were also supposed to squash that. So a lot of the time I was in the military, it was just constantly calling people out on their shit, man. We also had ACE, which was I don't know if I can remember. ACE, suicide prevention training. ACE, ACE, ask, care, and escort. Basically, the training was if somebody looks, we were taught about some of the warning signs of suicidal behavior. And the first step is asking, are you okay? The next step is actually giving a shit enough to sit there with the person and hear out what the problem is so you don't push them into suicide. The third one is escort. If it's serious, which is basically, if it's serious, then it's the expectation to drop whatever we're doing and escort them to someone who can keep them from killing themselves. There are 22, the last I checked, there are 22 veterans who kill themselves every day. Every day, 22 veterans commit suicide. And a lot of that has to do with the newness of mental health care. Prior to the mental health profession, most of the mental health counseling came from the clergy, from the priests, the pastors, and whatever they call them in other religions, rabbis and imams, whatever, you know. The mental health counselors, that was a job that the clergy did. Well, whenever there was an assault on the church, which included a bunch of pedophiles becoming clergy, and a bunch of people who took advantage of their position, the clergy lost faith. The people lost faith in the clergy, which is kind of where we're at right now. So what was developed, that's when psychologists became big. Turn of the 1900s was kind of when psychiatry was fairly new, and they had a lot of improvements. Nowadays, it's much easier to become a counselor. I think you can take like a 6-month course or something. I don't know, it doesn't take a lot, because I met a lot of counselors, and some of them are very bad at their job. And in fact, some of them, I believe, are the reason that there are so many veterans who kill themselves every day, because of some of the mental health counselors I've worked with at the VA. Which, now I got a fucking target on my back, because, again, being in the Army, that's the kind of shit that we were told to sound the whistle on. So now I got people who don't like me because I told them, like, they're getting people killed. Oh, and I got this. There's another level of suicide intervention training. Assist, applied suicide intervention training, or it's something. I can look it up. It was like a 2-day class, 16 hours or something. Assist. Wait, no. It is applied suicide intervention skills training. We did 2 days of this training. It was led by the chaplains. I got a certificate in it. And it's just a deeper level of training. We do these kind of trainings, like, that's one thing about the military is there's constant training. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but doing it year after year, because it's all like regularly, you do it regularly, it gets inside the head. Like, to the point that now I don't even know if I can interact with people, because going into the civilian world, I just hear people say shit that made me want to deck them in the fucking face, man. I once threatened the life of one of my coworkers because we were drinking, and he was talking about sodomizing one of our female coworkers. And I told him I was going to break his fucking spine if he said anything else, and he didn't. That shit pisses me off, man. Of course, that's another thing. Reducing the glorification of alcohol. Because alcohol is just a crutch reminding you of when you had friends who loved you. It's not the alcohol. You just miss your friends. So just a lot of shit. And I've burned so many bridges, even with my own family, because their way of life conflicted with everything that I learned in the military. And I'll tell you, everything I learned in the military was good. Like, I don't care, like, what your feeling on killing people is. I don't give a shit what your feeling on killing people is. In addition to learning how to kill people, I didn't get as much of that training as I wanted. We also learned how to take care of people. So, if you got a fucking problem with it, not only will we kill you, we'll take care of your family after you die. But that's generally Department of Justice stuff. That's an American tradition, is killing the enemy and taking care of the people that they destroyed. That's an American tradition. But it's another level now, too, because now they're getting so skillful at it that they're actually being able to turn around people rather than just having to kill them or imprison them. They're doing a lot of good work. But that's one of the reasons that I don't fucking like hanging out with people, to be honest, is even veterans, because a lot of them scoffed at the training. But which me, I was like, all right, this is what you want me to do. I'm down with it. And I didn't really like to spend time with people who violated all that shit. There were times where, like, to fit in, I would make jokes that I really didn't like, and I regret it. And there were times where I did things that I didn't really like to fit in, and I regret it. I was a virgin, for example. As a Christian, I had made the decision in 8th grade that I was going to stay a virgin, short of the molestations I experienced as a child. Ignoring that, I was going to stay a virgin until I had met my wife. I did a pretty good job. A lot of people in high school didn't like me because if someone flirted with me, if it wasn't someone I felt like I was going to marry, then I wasn't interested. If it wasn't someone I was going to marry, and they kept pushing toward me, I would eventually become mean to them because I didn't know what else to do. And there were plenty of women like that I just wasn't going to marry because I didn't like how they were. I didn't like how they interacted with other men. And I didn't like, okay, you're going to flirt with me, but then you're going to, like, be all sit in some other dude's laps or, like, you know, it's just weird shit. Don't flirt with me, man. If you're not serious, don't flirt with me because I ain't got time for you. If it ain't for my wife, then I'm training for Kung Fu or whatever it is. If you're not going to be my wife, I'm not really that interested, because unless you're walking on the same path with me, we don't have time for each other. So if you're in one of the activities that I use this to fill my time, if you're not one of my concentric circles of concentric training, if you're not in one of my circles of concentric training, I'm probably not going to interact with you. And I'm sorry. I love you, and you'd probably be a real good person to hang out with, but I don't really drink anymore. I got over that after getting out of the Army. The drinking is something that came and went from my time in the service. I just don't like the way it feels. It was kind of fun to party with my friends, but that's how I learned that it wasn't the alcohol that was making me feel good. It was the memories of my buddies, or the people that I thought were my friends, and the party we were having, and the not just that, but the fact that we were doing stuff, and like we were working, and we were achieving things, and we were like accomplishing things, and we were getting promoted and all this shit, and we were just like, every day was a celebration. So, like, for a soldier at least, that drinking it's all a celebration. So, yeah, and that's why a lot of us veterans can have substance abuse problems like alcohol, because just old traditions that haven't died yet. There's an initiative to eliminate the glorification of alcohol, which is basically no using alcohol as a reward. Basically, what we're supposed to do is, alcohol is, it's there, right? Just don't talk about it. Don't fucking glorify it. Don't be a super party person. Don't just like, if you're gonna drink, drink. If you're not gonna drink, don't drink. Don't try to pull anybody else into your drunken bullshit. So a lot of good things. Honestly, if more people became soldiers and long enough to indoctrinate, I think it's 4 years, they say, to become institutionalized, which means that you're changed forever. If more people were institutionalized into the United States military, I can't speak for anyone else, but at least within the United States Army Special Operations community, because that's where I got all my training. At least within that community, if more people were to go to that community and come out into the world would be a better place. Again, even as support, I was just a radio guy. I didn't do shit. I was radios. I didn't do anything. I wasn't a special person, but I got to learn from them. And if more people had the benefit of those kind of individuals in their community, the world would be a better place. Because I struggled so hard interacting with civilians, because it's just such a different mindset. Like, everyone has their family traditions and like the way that their family is, but in the military, you no longer have those traditions if they're conflictual to the Army mission. And it's like, it makes it difficult. But I know I don't generally hang out with other veterans and stuff. I mostly spend my time training. Like I said, all the circles of concentric training that I'm doing, if I meet you there, I will enjoy my time with you. Currently, I'm looking for a dance partner, a ballroom dancing partner. My feet were broken, and I need to regain my ability. So I'm looking for one or more consistent dance partners to practice with. Because as a martial artist, I need my feet to work the way they did before I broke them. And also, I'd like to be able to dance with my wife whenever I find her. But yeah, I did a lot of things to fit in while I was in the Army that, looking back, but that's part of maturing. Part of maturing is seeing what the crowd is doing and refusing to do it if you know it's not good for you. And being immature, and I know this because I spent a lot of my life being immature. Being immature is knowing within me that something is wrong but because I want to fit in, I do it anyway. And that's a very strong feeling, and it's very hard to overcome. It takes a lot of loss to overcome that. And that's what maturing is experience gained from surviving life. I don't generally like to stay in my house like I have been the past 7 years, but I learned so much about training that I've just decided that I want to, because I plan on going back. I've always wanted to go back when I can. I want to go back better, So I spend most of my time just trying to do that. Just trying to be a better man. And that if I ever go back into the military, I want to be the pride of my superiors. Because, if you're the pride of your superiors, you're not kissing ass. Kissing ass is the ones who try to flatter and they want to make the leadership love them even though they're not necessarily worth a shit. But to be the pride of your superiors is to know that it's for them to know that they can rely on you. And I know this from both sides of the equation because even though I lost my E5, I was a sergeant, even though I did make some fool decisions at the end there, and I lost my rank. I did experience several years of being a non-commissioned officer, and to see it from both sides is quite the experience. To see how people change, there's so much it would take me hours to tell you about it. But it's so difficult, man. There's so much to manage. There's the expectations of the leadership, which is always there no matter what your position is. But the higher ranking you are, the more is expected of you. You get paid more and you have some more privileges, but it's honestly just to balance the extra stress that is there with being more responsible for things. But there's the expectation from leadership that grows as you do, that grew as I grew. There's the expectations from the subordinates who used to be your peers, or who used to be the peers, or rather, to step up. There's the expectations of the people who are now at your same rank, who used to be superior to you, who are going to be, if you don't go to a different unit, resentful of your rank and your newness for whatever reason. Because before, you had to just do whatever they said. Now you got to argue with these fools. Because if they're wrong, being their same rank, you have to tell them that they're wrong. Otherwise, why the fuck are you a rank that you're at? Why are you at the rank you're at if you're not pushing for the betterment of the unit? Which, whatever, if you don't agree with me, it's probably because you don't know anything. And you were just trying to survive. You probably didn't really enjoy it. But, so the peer expectations. Then there's the subordinate expectations, because most of those were probably your peers just before, and that's one of the hardest things, is shifting into a different position is real crazy feeling. And there's also a lot of resentment from people for that kind of thing. So just like on all sides, it's something that if you want to be a good soldier or leader or whatever, it's like so much stuff. There's so much because you got to manage people's expectations, and you got to make sure that you're not stepping on any toes unless you have to. And then that's scary because it's like diving off of a high dive for the first time. Or diving off of a diving board. I never had access to a high dive, but diving off of a diving board. It's like diving off of a diving board because it's like you got to manage all these expectations, and you just got to trust that the people over you who gave you the rank that you were given are going to support you. And that if you get in an argument with someone, that what's right is going to come out. And that's what's going to be. It's called general military authority, one way or the other. What's right is right. What's right is what's right. And it doesn't matter anything else, because if you're doing something that's not right, doesn't matter the seniority you have or the connections you have, you're not an asset. You're a detriment. You're a liability. So, and that also means, like, for me, when I lost my rank, it hurt my pride, but because I had recently suffered a traumatic brain injury and I was basically walking around like a ghast or a zombie, I understood that it was what was best for the unit, because at that moment in time I was not capable of performing the duties that I had. And it was in the best interest of the unit for me to step aside and try to deal with what I needed to deal with. And I made a lot of progress. And I know this is something that just really doesn't matter to a lot of people, but this was my life. And I've basically just been raising a child and doing kung fu since I got out the military. I haven't even had a girlfriend. Like, I was married and stuff. I've spent the last 7 years with no sex or anything. It's been tough, but it would be easy to go sleep with a woman, but I decided to use it as structured self-development. How long can I go? How long am I capable of going without listening to my penis? And turns out I can go a long time. I mean, probably forever. It was difficult. There were so many times that I started browsing Tinder and stuff, just like thinking about just getting revenge, just revenge sex. I thought about just having sex with a bunch of women, just like thinking about just going through them. But I decided I didn't want to do that, and I was hoping that my wife would come back, and even if she didn't, that I didn't want to set a poor example for my son. I didn't want to be a part of the problem that this country is facing. So we'll see how that goes, but I've recently done much better in that area. In addition to that, it's like there's the physical requirement. I've chased researching the body as if I'm a scientist in a lab. And I've learned a lot. More than I thought was possible for me to know. Like, I didn't realize. And I know that there's far more than that. Brain to body, brain, and soul. And then just being a good father. Now, as someone who, like, I never knew that I enjoyed leading people until I was a non-commissioned officer. And then it was a little uncomfortable at first, but I learned to love it, like, and maybe I didn't deserve it, but I enjoyed it. And then having a child, and then not only that, but like I got out the military, and then that's all I had in me was just raising this child who couldn't even speak English. Like, I was talking baby talk with him, and I was just sitting at home all day, just like, what can we do together? Because I didn't go and play games that were, I tried not to be selfish, right? I tried not to play games that were inappropriate for him, or watch TV that was inappropriate for him. The most harmful thing that probably I gave him was trying to have a good relationship with my family, and the constant instigation. And it's not fair to, anyway. So that's one of the reasons I quit talking to them. It's just not fair to my child. But that's another thing I did. I felt like I built a real strong relationship with my family. It's stronger now than it ever was. And I know them more now than I ever did, which is still scary. Because, I decided rather than hanging out with friends over here that I didn't have already, I just have a remote relationship with my family and wait for my wife to come back, wait for her to quit being mad at me or whatever. Yeah, I'll probably be waiting the rest of my life. And this isn't SAP's story, this is witnessing, this is testimony. As a Christian, it's one of the common things within Christianity is to give testimony of our failures so that other people don't make the same mistake. And an easy way to illustrate this is in the military, and this I experienced mostly in basic training. Again, I didn't have the opportunity or the fortune to deploy and kill terrorists because there was a drawdown by the time that I got to my unit. So in the situations where there was a ruck march or anything, if you ever go to basic training, you'll experience it. One of the simplest things is you're in a single file line and one person in front of the other. If there's a pothole and someone steps in it, you'll see the person that steps in it go this. Or like, hey, there's a fucking hole here. And they might even say that. Hole, there's a hole, don't step in the fucking hole. And then if you're farther back in line, you'll see that every person who's on that team, in that platoon or whatever, it'll be like a caterpillar or a wave it'll be like the wave at a sports arena. Like, hey, fucking hole here, hole here, hole here, hole. And that's because you don't want someone in your unit to break an ankle because they stepped in a hole. Unless you're just a piece of shit. Like, why are you in the army if you want one of your comrades to be hurt? Like, you don't understand what the military is about. You're a glory hound or a clout chaser, more than likely, if you're looking at destroying the body of one of your teammates. Or you just kind of thoughtless and you should get with the program. So a Christian's testimony and witnessing is that very thing. Is this is how I fucked up. I didn't have anybody else to tell me not to do this thing, or if I did this thing, someone punished me for it rather than helping me. So I'm telling you so you don't make this mistake. I don't care what happens to me. Think of me whatever you want. If you're the kind of person who's going to think poorly of me, it either means you're ignorant or you're a fucking piece of shit. So, I'm more inclined to believe that it's just ignorance now than being a piece of shit. I don't really call anyone a piece of shit anymore. But if you're a buddy fucker, as in you're willing to screw over your friend for your own clout, well, I think there's a layer in hell called treason. It's the type of treason. Another example of that is sleeping with married women, or sleeping with your friends' wives, or trying to break up someone's relationship. Like, there's just all kind of shit you can do. Trying to get someone at work fired. These are all evil things that if people do this, doesn't matter how much you like them or how cool you think they are, the best thing you can do is get away from them. Go join a fucking club. And I'm not talking about a fucking sex club. I'm not talking about a go get laid by people who are inferior to your probable worth, but because you're desperate, you want to have sex, you'll let low your standards. I'm talking about, well, I'm a martial artist. I joined a martial arts academy within, November. I got to Fort Bragg in November of 2011. December, January, February, March, April. It was like less than 6 months when I had started a martial arts practice, and instead of going drink with people who were behaving kind of in a way that I was okay with not hanging out with them, I did that instead. And that was the best decision I ever made. And if I had more time, like if that wasn't enough time for me to learn and take my time, if it wasn't enough for me, I'd go do other stuff. Like, I also joined the CrossFit gym because I was doing CrossFit before I did the martial arts, but I didn't have any teachers. I was doing it on the workout. Well, I found a CrossFit place. Second best decision of my life was joining that CrossFit place because I learned so much, and I learned that, like, honestly, if there's a culture that I want to be a part of, it's going to be a physical culture because it's just, I don't know, man. That's just how I am. I like to play tag and lift weights. And I like to fight. And I like to dance with women. I like to climb rock walls. You know, I like to jump on trampolines with my boy. Um, I liked doing yoga. That was a good time. My son was very young, and I didn't have a female presence in my life. I joined a yoga studio, and I got to meet some of the coolest moms in the world. Couldn't ever get too close with them because, it would be inappropriate. At least at my, I don't know, man. I have a hard time with being around women because I've had so many situations where I thought things were cool and then they start flirting with me. And then if I think it's inappropriate and I don't flirt back, I would experience people getting mad at me to the point that it would ruin whatever situation I was in. And I experienced this enough that it was easier for me to just not be friendly than to make a friend who was going to be mad at me because I didn't want to lay the dick out. You know? I don't know, man. I'm sorry. I'm a monogamist. I like having one woman. And if I did have more than one woman, I'd want just that other woman also. Now, I'm not saying that's what I want. I'm just saying I'm a one woman kind of guy. And if I wasn't going to be a one woman kind of guy, I'd be a two woman kind of guy. And just those two. Or those three. If I was a polygamist even, it would just be those women. I still wouldn't go out and have sex with strangers. Which is kind of fucked. But I'm not that kind of person. But I'm saying if I'm going to fail some way, it's going to be one way. That's the only way I'm going to fail in that regard. It's like a fire break. I'm still not going to have sex with strangers. Because I don't like it and I don't want to have diseases. I like to invest in people. But I don't do that, It's been 7 years. If I was going to have sex with a stranger, I would have done it. So, we'll see what happens. I'm still working on me. I'm trying to get... one of the things I've been working on is I kind of like my body to be where I want it to be. At least aesthetically. I'm pretty good. Aside from my injuries, I'm pretty actually decently able to perform. But I've mentioned this before. When I was in college and I was taking weightlifting classes and wellness classes and martial arts classes, excuse me, I keep hiccuping. I started to think about shit. I lost my train of thought. Maybe it wasn't the time for me to talk about that, so I'll talk about it later. I'm going to have to change subject completely because I do not remember what I was talking about. Oh, weightlifting and exercise, right? So I remembered vividly one of my brother's friend, this dude named Nick. He was a triathlete because when I was still training to join the military, I had joined the triathlon club because that was my goal. I was gonna complete a triathlon. I was gonna enlist in the Marines, but that was before I realized that there was some legacy stuff in the Army that I wanted to pursue. So I made that decision instead. But yeah, so I was talking to this guy, and this was around the time that I realized that there was really two different talent trees I could take. If you're a video gamer, then this should make sense to you. There were two different talent trees I could pursue. One of them is aesthetics. One of them is looks up front. And I didn't choose to do that because I knew what it was about, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to perform well in the military if I chose that route. So what I chose was ball dragging fatigue. And what I mean by ball dragging fatigue is I would go on runs until my nipples bleeded. I would come back from these 15-mile runs and I'd have a white shirt on and just 2 lines of blood from my nipples from rubbing raw. I would run on blisters to the point that I had to brainwash myself to enjoying the pain to make it through the run. Um, I would lift weights until I threw up. I remember the first time I threw up from lifting weights, I was doing a hamstring curl. And I had lifted as much weight as I could, and all of a sudden I just felt like, ugh, and I had to run to the trash can and just retch. Just puke, man. Basically, I wanted to perform in any given circumstance. No matter what, I wanted to be able to put my nose to the grindstone and sharpen. And I wanted to perform. And so I just gave it everything I could. Problem is, it's a good way to, it takes longer. Like, all that cortisol, I was basically skinny fat. And, I don't know. Anyway, 13 years later, let's see, I took that college class in 2007, 2008 maybe. So, 17 years later, I learned a lot more, and I'm finally at the point where I don't have a choice. I have enough injuries that I'm having to regress all the exercises that I have so that I can actually perform them, because my joints are just fucked. I just tore everything to pieces. And I just kept going. Even when I'd have an injury, I'd just tear the next thing to pieces. And I don't regret it or anything, but I've reached the point where my injuries have accumulated like a large landfill of glass. And I'm having to, step by step, regress every movement that I have to the absolute maximum just to make the pain go away. And just so that I can walk without fucking falling down. Just so I can stand up out of my bed in the morning. And the good thing is, all this time later, at 36 years old, I finally am overlapping the aesthetics world. I'm finally, after all these years, I did have some basic attractiveness previously, but again, I needed to eat, so it wasn't, I don't know. I was never super concerned with how I looked. I was mostly concerned with how well I could fight and how well I could work. And I know that sounds kind of, I don't know what the word is, full of myself or something, but I promise you I'm not. This is what my thoughts were. However good I am, which I don't think I am very good or anything at any of these pursuits, but it's just the mentality that I developed. But finally, after so many years, I have to do the stuff that the aesthetics people are doing. Sort of have to do the things the aesthetics people are doing. I'm actually quite sidestepping the things that the aesthetics people are doing, because the way that the aesthetics people are training is the way I trained when I was a little boy, and there's other better ways. So it's just interesting. I don't know. I've been at this weightlifting regression for less than a year, and it's probably going to take another couple years to really show off what it is that I'm doing. But I've started to chronicle it. One of the ways is on Facebook. I have been posting some progress pictures. Excuse me, hiccuping again. I've been posting some progress pictures. I did a video recently about it. And I'm not really expecting much belief or respect. I've never really gotten a lot of that. People only respect results. And they're generally unwilling to believe me if I don't already have the results. And then it becomes obnoxious, because why would I care what a person thinks? They didn't believe me the last time when I did it. So we're going to see. I've been doing a lot of experimentation. I've read many research papers. At least I tried to understand them as best that I could. So we'll see. Like I said, I have a stalker. Probably has something to do with my ex-wife. I don't know, man, because that's why a lot of people how a lot of people get killed. So whatever. If I get killed, it just means that y'all weren't deserving of whatever I'm working toward. Which might sound arrogant, but it's not. Go fuck yourself. So yeah. So y'all getting to see me with my big belly up front. And we'll see. If I'm still around, I'll show you things. I've never been comfortable with my shirt off. So I'm not much of a shirt off kind of person. But I promise you, if I get where I'm going, I'll fucking gratify you. So you can understand what I'm saying. It's not that there's anyone listening anyway, but you know, I consider it kind of a public speaking thing. So the more I do it, the better I get. After 7 years of adapting as a new civilian veteran, a veteran civilian, 7 years, I'm starting to get a hang of it, and it's a profound feeling. So I hope that I'm still around later to show you more things and tell you about more things. Maybe I'll have more people listening to me then. Not that I really want people listening to me, but it's always good to have friends. But yeah, I'm looking for a dancing partner. I'm kind of tired of being lonely. So even though I'm not looking for a sexual partner or anything, I'm definitely looking for someone to be a ballroom dancing partner. Because it's good footwork. You know, Bruce Lee did ballroom dancing. I did ballroom dancing in college. I took a semester of it. I'd be way better now. I had a really good teacher too. I can't remember her name. I saw someone who looked like her at Walmart, but I thought, well, that's 1,000 miles away. There's no way that she could be around here. And at the time, I was dealing with a lot of people giving me a lot of shit. And so I hope that she can forgive me if, just in spirit, since there's no way it could have been my ballroom dancing teacher. I hope she can forgive me because I was in an incredibly volatile situation, and to the point that I didn't yell or anything, but I kind of gave a stern look because I didn't know what they wanted. And I was so used to arguing with people at the time because of the situation I was in that I was just expecting nothing but argumentation. So I'm sorry. But thank you, man, for teaching me ballroom dancing. It was one of the funnest classes I've ever taken in my life, and I think you did a really good job, even though I'm not that great at it. But I hope to find a partner and get actually good at it so that I can make you proud, even though you're never going to know about it. Yeah, I took ballroom dancing because I was obsessed with the Middle Ages when I was a child. I was absolutely obsessed with the Dark Ages, Middle Ages, the Renaissance to a lesser extent. I cared less for the Renaissance. I thought it was less masculine than the medieval knighthood. But I was a little boy, you know. I still took words from them. And when I was a boy, there were just all these different things that went into being that kind of man, being a Renaissance man, or to be a man of honor. And I took it probably more seriously than I should have. Some people called me kind of strange because of it, but you know, the whole chivalry thing. Chivalry is 99% how to kill your enemy and 1% how to love your woman. But they're all dead, so it's not like we know anymore. Now it's just fucking hookup culture. I've yet to meet the honorable men that I've been looking for my whole life. But I met some pretty good men with honor. But as like a whole, but it's just I guess it would be an unrealistic expectation, especially if I'm not there yet. I still look at titties, man. I love titties. I love big titties. I'm sorry. I just absolutely love big natural titties. I still find myself looking at big natural titties. Less on the internet now, but I have a hard time, especially when they're low cut. It's very difficult for me to not look at a pair of big natural titties. Even small natural titties. I like small natural titties. I love titties. I love women's titties. I'm sorry. I was breastfed. I'm a weirdo. Please forgive me. I like breasts. And whenever I see a woman with a strong, athletic butt, I like that too. Sorry. I still like women. I just like women. I like every part of a woman. I like every variation of women. I only married one woman because she was my favorite. She was what I wanted. But, you know, being alone for 7 years, it's hard not to appreciate the beauty of strangers when they put it in my face. I just try not to look too much. And I'm to the point where I'm doing a lot more not looking, but it's a visceral, instinctual feeling to see a big pair of titties or a nice butt. Or even like nice legs or strong, like, you know, just a woman who would be good at being a mom, good at chasing around 12 kids or whatever. But I've done good. I've spent the last 7 years trying to get over my perversions, and I'm doing pretty well. For the most part, I don't have any effect by it. But that's that self-mastery thing. You know, Benjamin Franklin's pursuit of the perfection of self. The pursuit of the perfection of self, that while it may never be possible, we can see how long and how far we get. It's like playing a survival game. How good of a person can I become? How good and strong of a man can I become? That's my survival game. I'll find out, or maybe there's a timer. Maybe there's, like, I'll see what my score is when I go to heaven. I've made a lot of mistakes, though. So yeah, I'm looking for a ballroom dancing partner. Strictly platonic. I just want the skill and the footwork. And if we could win a competition for money, that would be cool. I like winning prize money. I've won things before. I enjoy it because, like, it's hard to get paid for skill. There's not a lot of situations where, like, take any of the soldiering skills, for example. Unless you're a soldier, it's very hard to get paid to be a soldier. But then if you're a particularly good marksman, you can go win marksmanship competitions. That's one of the things I'm going to work for. I'm working towards competitive shooting because I think it would be fun. And I've never had that kind of coaching before. I've shot expert on my rifleman qualifications, but I never scored Eagle Eye, and that's the nickname my grandfather gave me when I was a little boy. So I felt like I disappointed him that I didn't get 40 out of 40. So I'm gonna join a competition shooting place here soon because it's funny. I mean, it's fun, and then you can win guns and gun safes and stuff. And it's super good. And like dancing, I mean, can't you win like prize money and stuff? So that'd be fun too. It's all kind of stuff like that. But here I am. I still wait. Trying to focus on my child. You know, I consider it to be unfair. Like, I brought him into this world. His mother and I conceived him. It's my responsibility how he turns out. And I don't want to be so selfish as to bring a woman around, because the kind of guy I am, if I bring a woman into my life, 80% of the time is going to be sex. And that's not something I want to have around while my child is still growing up. Not at this juncture anyway. I was thinking maybe wait till he wants to date women on his own before I start dating. Because then he'll at least understand what I'm doing, and he won't feel like, why are you not paying attention to me? You know? Because I think that's unfair. I don't think it's right to ignore a child. Even if they're annoying. Like, it's still not fair. Like, even me, like, I'll save that for another time. But, like I said, I probably need to practice for my next courtship ritual. So, I wouldn't mind finding a dancing partner for a temporary competition level of practice. No sex, not willing to get another woman pregnant right now while this child is being reared. Things are looking good though. Good times though, good times. I don't know, man. It's weird thinking about life and like, what are we as humans supposed to be doing? Like, what is the intent of our life? First of all, to live is primacy. So to live is primacy. To continue life is secondary. Outside of that, it's really all a bunch of it's like different strategies for survival. There's some people who take advantage of others, and there's some people who support others. It's the difference of the Nazis versus America. Nazi Germany was an example of a tyrannical leadership. Whereas America, at least whenever we had serious leaders, and I'm not just talking about one leader, I'm talking about a distributed spread out group of leaders with all of one mind and focus. And that was a time where the secondary form of leadership, or really the primary form of leadership, actual righteous leadership was. And then there's tyrannical leadership, where the leader gets in the position and takes advantage of his people that he's supposed to be taking care of. I started to write a paper about it in high school. I'm not in high school, in college. But I got kicked out of that lady's class, so I hope she didn't steal my work and pass it off on her as her own. The and that had to do with, I don't necessarily believe that all of the translations of Greek are correct. As in, I don't know, I think that there are people who have slaves and then there are people who have followers. To have a follower is a righteous leadership. To have slaves is a tyrannical leadership. So, like, really, what determines whether, like, if you want to use Dungeons and Dragons alignment, what determines whether you're a good leader or an evil leader is how are your people doing? How well are they doing? Are they succeeding? Are they happy? Are they healthy? Are they educated? Are they achieving things? Is your society making progress toward betterment on its own? And I'm not, when I say progress, don't get it bent. I'm not talking about the social progress agenda. I'm talking about scientific progress. I'm talking about progress in capacity for people to lead and take care of citizenry. Like, alright, when's the last time we fixed our infrastructure federally? When's the last time the federal government fixed all the bridges and interstates? It's being maintained, but like, what's the last great federal project that was undertaken? Was it the Hoover Dam? Was it the Dwight Eisenhower interstate system? You know, like, most of the bridges in America are falling apart. The quality of water everywhere is not doing well. The South is being overtaken by kudzu. The desert is irradiated. These cities are falling apart. All the great urban cities are falling apart because, I don't know, that just capitalism without care. I'm a full supporter of capitalism, but I'm also a full supporter of taking care of people. There's a nice rain going on outside. So I don't think that this is going anywhere. So I'm going to go elsewhere because I think that this is just a good place to mine coal, but that's good to know. Alright, the one on the right is coal. Let's see what we have on the left. Having the Matic makes a difference. I did have to look up how to get it because I was stuck. So I apologize. I had to check the Akashic records. This wall is not very hard, but a strange smell is emitting from it. trust people who want to belittle you even though you try to do the right thing, because more than likely, if they're worried about your failures, they're trying to cover up their own. Like, don't trust what anybody says. Like, why waste time listening to someone complain about another person? Just be careful. You may not want to spend any time in your life with people like that, because they will lie. They will forget their own flaws and lie. Piece of sulfur. It smells horrible, but I'm sure I will find a way to make use of it. Anyway, I'm just trying to tell you everything bad about me so you don't make the same mistakes. I mean, most of them anyway. Anyway. I think that we'd all be a lot better off if we worried less about who was touching our genitals and more about who was covering our hearts. By the way, so one of the themes of my life and my training style since becoming a father is baby steps.
very small steps that add up. To make something worthwhile. So previously, one of the steps that I had worked toward was a consistent diet where I didn't feel like I needed a lot of variety. I didn't want a lot of variety because I wanted self-discipline, and I wanted to eat something simple and relatively inexpensive, though cheese is still similarly on par with meat. Of course, it's generally of a higher quality. One of the things that I've been experiencing lately is a lack of carbohydrates in my diet and a lack of vegetables, and I've been working toward these things for a while. One of the things I used to do, Knorr packages. They're little pasta packages, and one of the things I just started eating this a couple days. Frozen vegetables. This is a mixed vegetable blend, a mix of cut green beans, diced carrots, corn, and peas. It's a somewhat rainbow of vegetables. That's one of the recommendations by nutritionists, is to eat the rainbow. You want to eat a lot of vegetables with varying colors. So what I've done is I've combined one package of this, as the directions instruct, and about a cup of mixed vegetables. I've done that for a couple days now, and I'm somewhat happy with it. I just need to make sure to boil these before starting this, otherwise these will not be tender enough to be enjoyable. So I generally will boil this in the water. It's like 1.5 cup of water of this, and I put this in like a cup of vegetables in with the 1.5 cup of water, and then I'll boil that for like 10 minutes so that it tenderizes the vegetables, and then I'll add the rest of the ingredients to this and follow this ingredient as if just starting the package. This one is Parmesan fettuccine pasta in a Parmesan cheese flavored sauce. Pretty good. I'd quit eating them whenever I had abstained from dairy for a while, but I'm back on it because I need the carbohydrates to support my exercise. I've been too tired and dragging too much ass. So I've recently begun, let's see, this is 92 grams of carbohydrates. One of those a day is pretty much enough. Another of the major successes I've had is in the elimination of sugar in my regular diet. I grew up eating a lot of sugar and sugary products. It was very difficult for me to quit sugar because it was always a comfort food. Often I'd eat a lot of sugar, and I associated a lot of foods with family, and I associated sugary foods with good times. So while it lasted, it was always not too hard to eat a bunch of sugar to counteract a stressful situation. And I've been trying for a while now, and I haven't eaten much sugar in months. Now I won't say that I'm not going to relapse, because I've done it before. I've quit sugar, and then I've relapsed, and I ate a bunch of sugar again. And I'm also not going to say that I'm going to go the rest of my life without sugar, because if eaten in moderation, it's not that big a deal. It's just whether or not I can have the discipline to eat it in moderation. That's really what addiction is do you have the discipline to eat it in moderation? Or are you is your response Oh man, this is decaffeinated. Whatever, I'll just drink it anyway. Green tea, Lipton green tea. I used to drink the bottles of green tea growing up. The pre-made sweet green tea is one of my favorite drinks. I've been trying to drink things without sugar, including my coffees and things. Like I haven't really. I also try to quit coffee and caffeine, but I don't know. I'm still not there yet. I've been eliminating habitual sin from my life one after the other, and caffeine is just still here. I'm just still working on it. It's kind of like a crutch. You know, before, not only did I have a crutch, I had 2 crutches, a wheelchair, a walker, and a full-body cast. Now I'm kind of just crutching around on green tea and coffee. I haven't drank energy drinks in a while. Which those aren't a great thing to have. Energy drinks are not a good thing to have. So I've eliminated those from my life. Again, I hope I don't relapse on them. I've been drinking energy drinks since college. Or before college, maybe high school, since the 180 degrees. The citrus flavored energy drink. Before Red Bull. Or before I was aware of Red Bull anyway. I remember my brother was in college, and he came with Red Bull because they were doing free samples of Red Bull, and that's when I heard about Red Bull. My brother was in college at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and they were advertising Red Bull on campus, and that's actually where I got the 180s too. He introduced me to those. They were always good. The 180s were the best. They had the best flavor. Everything went downhill after 180s. Now, I don't know what they had everywhere else. This was rural Louisiana, rural Acadiana. So I don't know what else they had elsewhere. Good memories though. Oh, if I don't really care how y'all use this information. It really doesn't make a difference to me because here I am trying to edify. I hope it is used for that, to edify. And if you use the information to not edify, well, that's your soul, man. And I'm sorry if you don't believe there is one. I don't believe you have testicles. Do you? Unless you're a woman, then what would it be? A lack of working ovaries? Is that how women insult each other? That you don't have the ovaries for it? I think that's what I've heard from them power women. From them pink rangers grown up. That's my kind of woman. The kind of woman that wanted to be the pink ranger. But then there's also the ones that are wholly undesirable that like Pink Ranger too, so don't take that as a catch-all. It's difficult, man. I'm really looking forward to when the other millennials really get going and putting in their analysis of our upbringing and like the specific television, the psychology behind the specific television that we watched as a kid and how that impacted us. Like, are there different archetypes of millennial? Like, not just archetypes of human, but are there different archetypes of millennials? Like, what are those? Like, they have so many people. It's kind of like, as confusing as all the different gingers are to me, I would be interested in a millennial breakdown, the way they did the gender breakdown. That would be super entertaining to me. Everybody likes to hear about their nostalgia. I know I do. So, do you know much about berserkers? Berserkers are a famed warrior in the Nordic tradition, which includes essentially the entirety of Europe, since the Nords kind of got their penises in everybody. You know, everybody in Europe has a little bit of Nordic in them, or their parents did at one time or another. So it's one of those stories that was passed down pretty easily. There's two different things. Some people think it's a drug trance using mushrooms, but then there's also the idea that it's a spiritual thing. So who knows? But anyway, the tale was that berserkers, when a berserker goes into a rage, a berserker is a fierce warrior. The problem is, in this rage, a berserker is incapable of distinguishing enemy from friend. And this is one of those famous legendary warrior kind of things. But so, and I've experienced people that probably have this. I don't know why, but all the blonde people in my family are capable of great rages. I don't know, it's something I've just noticed. Like my two blonde aunts, accordingly, they're some of the most vicious, worded people among everyone, which is cool. Then I've experienced it with other members of my family as well. So I personally think that there is credence to this. And I don't think it has anything to do with mushrooms. I think the mushrooms are just an easy way to get into it, more than likely. A cheat way. A non-true berserker. I think it's a genetic thing. I hope to show you one day, when I find a way to talk about these kind of things and kind of understand them. But anyway, I have a lot of theories about the berserker. I remember when I learned about it, I heavily identified with it because I would start to get angry in around first grade or kindergarten. Not really, I wasn't an angry person, but it's like the way I felt it was when I was a child is like I had a cup, right? This is as big as my cup was. And people would keep pouring into it and pour it into it and pour into it, and I'd drink as much as I could, but if people would pour into it more than I could drink, then it would overflow. And when that would happen, I've experienced this with a lot of different types of people. It's just a trip out. It's just like a fucking snap, man. I snapped on my brother one time when he hit me in the back of the head. I chased him down and beat him in the ribs. Now, I was a lot younger than him and a lot weaker, so I'm sure I didn't hurt him. But, you know, it's something I recognize, and he has it too. I recognize when a rage is coming on, and I promise you, you don't want to fuck with a man's rage. But it's interesting. I wonder what science will say when they research this stuff. Whenever we have enough scientists to research them, to give credence to the old myths and legends. I think it's a okay. I'll save that until later. It's been useful though, honestly. Because there's two different types. There's more than two, but there's the one that is just like automatic instinctual, and then there's the one that just feels like being on a drug. It's kind of like when Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about the pump that he gets from exercising. But imagine if someone pissed you off so much that you just were pumped. That all your muscles were pumped as if you'd been in the gym. And it's an intoxicating feeling. But I think that's why a lot of people don't do so good. Reliance. And don't make a mistake. I'm not talking about your daddy who abused you being angry, or your mama who abused you being angry. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a person who, the legend is that the only ones who were these berserkers, that whenever they were not in their berserker rage, they were a perfect gentleman. That it wasn't just a way that they were. It was a thing that happened in a certain circumstance. That generally these berserkers were perfect gentlemen who, when needed, would fly off into a rage that would enhance their strength severalfold. And I can vouch for that. It's not something I ever pursued, but I've witnessed it in other people. So I wonder if there's a name for it other than that. I wonder if there's people talking about it, or how many different names it has. But just fun stuff. I enjoyed mythology when I was growing up. As I was mentioning before, I enjoy myths, legends, and folklore. Because just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean that all these weird animals that people are talking about are a dismissible thing. The Bible generally says just don't fuck with them. Right down to angels. I believe in all the myths. It makes me very uncomfortable sometimes.
sometimes. Like, particularly, I think that the Greek myths were the most um, the Greek myths are the most prolific. And I believe they're real. I believe the gods are real. Even the Bible says don't anger them, but also don't respect them if they're doing evil. It doesn't say that in so many words, but like when they destroyed the altar of Baal, when God commanded the destruction of the altar of Baal, it's basically like if you're a little boy or a little girl and your parent says, don't go play with that goose. That goose is going to bite you. Don't play with that goose. It's going to chase you down and bite you. And that's kind of how I think about a lot of these spirits and stuff. I'm super enthralled by the paranormal. X-Files used to be my favorite show, followed by Stargate SG-1, probably. I entirely believe that there's credence to those things. I mean, I spent so many years reading about these things that unless there's some specific thing to trick and they're doing a good job about it, unless they're just purposely trying to trick, I don't know, man. It's an exciting world, and every time I see something supernatural, it makes me a little more excited. And when I have the dreams, man, I love having scary dreams. Some of them are too scary, but it's like being on a roller coaster ride that I wasn't ready for. Some of the dreams are so fucking terrifying, man. But then some of them, like I found that when I started to have nightmares and I started to pray to Jesus more about them, I started to come out more victorious in my dreams. So that was cool. Look, a cyclops. There's a lot of fear in the world. For good reason. Just don't let them win, okay? Just because someone can do evil things and have power over you doesn't mean that it's the end. The ones who should be most afraid in this world are the ones who do evil, because God and the angels and the gods and the spirits and the demons and the devil and all these metaphysical things that we don't have access to because we are uncivilized and incapable of being worth their time for the most part, unless it's to be manipulated, as every story of the past shows. I don't remember what I was about to say. It was pulled out of my brain again. The Bible says that the war we're in is a war of principalities and powers. A principality is the angel overseeing a nation. Like Michael over the Jews. Well, Israel. I believe Michael is the archangel over Israel. I wouldn't know the names of any of the others though. I don't know, I like mythologies because as far as I believe it, all that stuff is what heaven's gonna look like. And I really am excited. Because just because they don't use the same words doesn't mean fairies aren't in the Bible. I think that cherubim are probably the closest relation to a fairy in the Bible. Maybe, maybe it's a whole separate thing. It's hard to say. This is one of the ugliest drawings I've ever seen in my life. I am no artist by any means. It's got a gigantic head. It's just super weird looking. Ugly unicorn. I've been thinking about embracing how poorly of a drawer I am. An artist. How poor at drawing I am. Because, does it matter? If anyone criticizes your art and they're not doing it with love in their heart, does it matter? Like, look at this thing. I know I didn't do a good job with it. If you were to tell me it was bad, I would look at it and think, wow, you're right. Feel like teaching me how to draw? Because being an artist isn't my thing. But it's still nice to make semi-recognizable shapes. I forgot it had ears. I don't spend a lot of time around horses, so I don't really know what they look like anymore, to be honest with you. You know, I wouldn't mind some advice. How do you tell the person you love them if they're unwilling to listen to you? I've struggled with this a lot. All out of ink. The only thing about fountain pens that's not so great is they run out of ink incredibly quickly. I've never written with a fountain pen before, but I needed something to occupy my time and help heal my brain. So I'm trying to become an ink master here, but fountain ink. Hearing you talk about your disappointments made me want to call it a disappointment, but instead of that, I'm going to call it an attempt, because that's what it is. It's an attempt. It doesn't have to be good or bad, because if you ever get good at anything, you'll appreciate the time when you were not good at it. And you will appreciate it in other people, because the process of gaining skill is a very long, hard, stressful road, and once you find yourself, let me change the tense. Once I found myself respecting the work that I was doing, I started to respect all the work that I had done before that in whatever skill work I was doing, because I could see it. And once I saw it once, I saw it in every other venue. I saw it in every other area that I had attempted to achieve. I see the process now. I don't see the strings that control the system so much as I see the skill tree life. And drawing ugly unicorns comes before drawing pretty unicorns. I think this may be the first unicorn I've ever drawn in my life. What do you think about it? How bad is it? How much time did I take to put into it, though? You see, that's why I don't really like to draw, and I'm not an artist, because I don't enjoy the process of growing in this type of art. I never enjoyed it. Every time I drew, it was in an attempt
to escape the situation I was in. Most of the time it was in school when I had to be there. I didn't want to, and I'd already finished all the other work that I was supposed to be doing, and I was just trying to survive the moment. So I'd doodle in my pages. So my style of drawing is doodling. I'm not a true drawer. I'm a doodler. I doodle. But a picture a day might not be so bad, especially when it comes to healing gray matter, which is the primary focus of my life. Gray and pink. The gray matter of my mind, the white of my bones, the red of my muscle, the white of my sinew. The red of my blood. Those are the colors I think about the most. The blue of my eyes and sky, the red of the fire and ember, the green of the forest, and the clover. Yellow of gold and honey. The purple of a violet. These are the colors I like, the living colors. But it makes it easy to focus on black, because look at how simple it is. All I have to focus on is a stroke. Sorry about the ink. It pulled up right there from when I was trying to get it to flow properly. This is my first pen. This is my first fountain pen ever. It took me a few minutes to figure out how to use it. But once I figured out how to use it, it wasn't so bad. I have 3 different tips. Writing letters has made it easier to practice with it as well. I quite enjoy it. That's one of the things I learned is being forced into education for a long enough period of time. The type of writing utensil I use is incredibly important, because it can really make it more enjoyable, make the moments. Writing with a pen that is a joy to write with will make a moment into an instant. I need to address this to my son real quick. So I'm gonna put the cap on. My son's always asking for letters, and I remember when I was a little boy, always wanting to get a letter in the mail. I never did, so I figured I'd do it for him. It's hard to write one-sidedly, though. I've never had a pen pal. Oh, are you already done? I'm sorry there, little shave. I enjoy the way that the ink flows out onto the metal and onto the page. And the shine of it.
I'm not much for art, but it's fun every once in a while, especially when my body hurts too much. I'll be right back.